Jesslyn McCutcheon. Wow, what an inspiration. Although she would not agree with that, but she is very inspirational. I opened the conversation with just music and her relationship with music and her spirituality. It's woven into everything that she does. She was officially diagnosed bipolar in her mid to late 20s, but the series of events that got her there are incredible. I was going to say traumatic, but incredible. The first sign, a boyfriend nitpicking at her, and she starts realizing kind of these OCD tendencies, and then there's a dismissal at work, and she decides to hide in her bedroom for a month. Her roommate comes and helps her and is afraid for her and helps her. She has great gratitude and thanks for that, but going through the medications and trying to help herself and stop taking and moving on. But she emerges from this. She lives with bipolar. We talk about misconceptions. We talk about what friends can do to help, but she emerges from it. She has it now. But the remarkable thing about Jesslyn is that she tries to help others. It's one thing of getting yourself out of it and working with it and understanding it, but she actively helps others. She donates her time on suicide prevention lines. She speaks often. She's got a book that's coming out. It's a memoir that talks about her journey and how others can help. But just a very motivational and inspirational talk with Jesslyn McCutcheon. Thank you for listening and watching. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How did I lose the weight? Just one word, discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission? How do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Push this off, but Jesslyn McCutcheon, thank you so much for your time today. Explain the relationship you have with music, singing, songwriting. Tell me how it plays a role in your life, please.
Oh my gosh. Music has always been a form of therapy for me, going through what I have lived with for so long. But I grew up ever since I was a little girl singing in the church. And it has always been my passion. But when I grew up singing in the church, it was something that gave me high anxiety. I was one of those people who was, I love to sing and I would sing by myself, but with my family or anybody that wanted to hear me, I'd make them turn around.
Right.
I didn't want anybody looking at me or any eyeballs like looking at me. It would literally make me so nervous. So I've had to work through that through a lot of years. And it took me a very long time to get to the point where I could look out in an audience and be okay because I knew I was singing for someone at a higher power other than myself. I let for so long people dictate that in me because I let that fear overtake, me during that time and what I was trying to express. But once I finally, knew that the Holy Spirit was within me when I got up there to sing, it just, when he is within me completely, it goes exactly the way he wants it to go and everything else disappears. So that is what was missing for me for many years. But music as a whole, it has carried me through living with this illness. So I am very passionate about music. A lot of my journals turned into songs, and then I recorded some of those songs. Some of those songs I probably recorded just for myself, but it was a constant therapy for me. And I sing to this day. I sing on the praise team at our church, and music and being able to sing grounds me in living with this. So
In this fast-paced MSP landscape, how do you stay ahead? Introducing MSPinfluencer.com, your ultimate hub for MSP news, insights, and community connection powered by Forza Dash. More than 75,000 MSPs subscribe to our MSP Influencer Pulse weekly newsletter, staying informed and ahead of industry trends. Tune in to emerging podcasts from Joey Pinz and leading MSP voices, offering essential tips, powerful insights, and success stories. Explore our multi-authored blogs, crafted specifically for MSP leaders, delivering fresh perspectives and actionable strategies. Celebrate excellence with the industry-leading Forza MSP Influencer Awards, recognizing innovation, leadership, and impact in the MSP community. Join thousands of MSP professionals who trust MSPinfluencer.com to grow their business and expand their networks. MSPinfluencer.com, where today's MSP leaders connect, collaborate, and conquer, all powered by the Forza platform, helping MSP vendors work effectively with MSPs and helping MSPs grow. And spirituality seems to be kind of woven in everything you do as well, Jesslyn.
Absolutely. It is the foundation for me to take my days every step of the day. I mean, I know we'll go over this and go into this, but living with bipolar disorder, I mean, it's a chronic medical condition that, you have to find what works best for you personally. But for many years, I was missing the piece of my spirituality and really trusting that God was going to get me through every day. So, yeah.
What signs should we look for in loved ones and friends when it comes to bipolar that they may not recognize? What should we look for?
Oh my gosh. You'll start to find if you start thinking something's up, they might disappear. You'll find that they're not interacting like they used to. They're going to withdraw. You might notice that their eating habits are off. They might be eating a lot or they're not eating anything at all. Um, you know, it- when people start to isolate themselves, that's really scary. And you need to take notice when you notice that within a family member or within a friend, because they're isolating themselves because they just feel like, when you get to that point, you just don't know what else to do. You're in such a place of despair. You just don't know how else to handle that. And that is critical that family, friends recognize that and their friends are loved one, because that person needs help and they are seeking help. They just don't know how to vocalize it outwardly. And that's the thing too, with living with depression and living with bipolar disorder. It is so hard to vocally express that when you're in it, because it's such a vulnerable subject and a vulnerable topic. And, you don't know who you can trust. And a lot of people just don't get it. They don't get it because they just don't know. You don't know what you know until you know. And you don't, know how much somebody cares until they show that back to you. It's just so important to be able to recognize those signs and to have that compassion for your friends and family, because many people try to fight this in silence. And when you do that for so long and for so many years, that's when tragedy can happen, because they just can't do it anymore and they can't fight anymore alone.
Yeah, I heard you talk about your story where there was your work said you should take some time off, and you hid in your room for a long time, and your roommate was scared. She'd actually like kind of lie with you because she was scared and she wanted to talk to your parents, and eventually she did, kind of behind your back. But the way she handled it with you, is that really the best way?
I am so thankful for her. Honestly, it's because of her that I got the help that I needed
Wow.
from my parents. But I was the one at that time pushing her away and pushing her advice away, because I've always been this independent person where I'm going to try to fight this and handle it on my own,
Mm.
and at that time, that was in the beginning stages of everything, where I had never like even experienced depression before. I had no idea what was going on. And I was just like, we're going to get through this. Yeah, I may not be able to get out of bed right now, but I know one day that I'm going to be able to do this again. Well, for her, after seeing me on this constant decline and me just withering away day after
Mm,
day,
mm,
she got to the point where she's like, no, I'm not taking this anymore, and I'm calling your parents. She never vocalized that to me. She did it behind the scenes, but I am thankful and I'm so grateful that she did that, because she did save my life, where everything led to that. I had no idea that was even this spiral was even happening and where it
mm,
all would go. So I just so appreciate that she saw that in me and she saw that decline.
mm.
Yeah.
Important to have strong friends. You tell a story about when you first kind of realized you were obsessive compulsive. You had a boyfriend that would nitpick at you and you would take it really to an extreme there. That's kind of hard for a friend to recognize and make try to help there. But this is kind of your first realization.
Yeah. And, I get that question often, like, did you have a trigger? Did you
Mm,
have a trigger, Jesslyn, that triggered all of this? And yes, I believe that trigger was with my boyfriend. We both were in a relationship that just was not healthy, and
mm,
neither one of us knew how to let it go. But at the same time, during that relationship, I struggled with some things. I struggled with not being good enough for him, or not feeling like I was really the person he wanted to be with. I got to the point over dating him for over 3 years that emotionally my self confidence was just not there anymore,
mm.
and little by little it chipped away with what was going on in that relationship. And you know, I didn't see it myself. I didn't see it myself until I literally crashed and it literally burned. And that was the trigger that led to this depression in the beginning. Yeah.
Is depression generally the kind of entry to bipolar?
You know, I have learned over these past couple of years, after really doing some research and diving in about bipolar disorder, that often when people are diagnosed with bipolar disorder, it typically takes up to 8 years. And we
Mm,
are diagnosed with other things before they even get there, because it's such a process for psychiatrists to diagnose bipolar
mm,
disorder. They want to definitely rule out it's not just major depression. It's not just, whatever it may be. When I first was diagnosed, yes, I was diagnosed with MDD, major depression disorder, and OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. So they started treating me for those two things. And it wasn't until 3.5 years down the road that I officially got the bipolar 1 diagnosis. And honestly, my diagnosis came a lot earlier than some people do receive. They say early onset, a bipolar disorder can happen by the age of 25. I started having my symptoms at the age of 23. And by the time I was 26, I was officially diagnosed with bipolar 1.
mm. What are
And
I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanna know, I didn't mean to interrupt Jesslyn, but what are misconceptions do people, think about bipolar?
Oh my gosh, there are so many misconceptions. First of all, like, uh, bipolar disorder is a chronic mental illness. It's a medical condition that requires attention. It requires seeking the correct treatment. I am a very spiritual person, but I experienced this a lot in growing up. I love God with all my heart, all my mind, with all my soul. But that's what the church needs to see, is that living with bipolar disorder is not just a spiritual condition. it's also a very serious medical condition, just like cancer, just like diabetes.
Mm.
We have to take care of ourselves, just like those, who need to take care of themselves in specific ways that the doctors lead them for dealing with diabetes or cancer. It's not just about always praying more, and it's not just about always having more faith, and it's not just about because of my sin that I live with this illness. I live with a medical condition that needs constant seeking and constant care. Yes, I believe Jesus can do anything, and he could heal me. He could heal me from this if he wanted to. But I also believe that sometimes the thorn is left in my side, so I stay with him so I can continue to fight this. That is one really big misconception with bipolar disorder. Another one is that, like I mentioned before, people just flippantly use the word, oh, she's so bipolar, or
Mm.
he's so bipolar,
Mm.
or she's so crazy. It's those words and the language that is used is not healthy for people who actually live with a condition. And when you hear those things, it's actually very hurtful because they don't realize the fight that we are fighting with every single day. Um, so the language that is used, um, bipolar is not just something that, she's having a lot of highs or lows, or it's a very serious illness, and it's never anything to joke about or make
Mm.
light about.
Mm.
um I think another big misconception is that people think those who are living with a serious mental illness cannot live fulfilling lives.
Mm.
I'm here to tell you that even though this illness is horrific at times, and until you find what works for best for you, it is going to be a fight. Living with this is always going to be a journey, and we are all uniquely different, and we are all uniquely on this journey trying to figure out what works best for us. But it's possible. It is very possible to live a fulfilling life when you figure out what that is, when you figure out how to best take care of yourself, and when you figure out the ins and outs about living with bipolar disorder. And that's exactly what I had to do. First of all, for many years, I didn't want to embrace or acknowledge that I lived with this serious mental
Mm.
illness. That's
Mm.
why I kept it under the radar. I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to try to deal with it by myself. But in reality, that's the worst thing you can do. You need community, and you need people to walk alongside of you to help you. You need people. And that is what Jesus clearly says too. We need people. We
Mm.
need to love one another. And that is what he did. He showed love for all of us. And that is what we need to be doing for other people too. And those who are living with mental illness, we need to show them love, where we don't get that a lot of times, because you mentioned the word bipolar disorder, you meant to mention the word mental illness, and all of a sudden it's like this judgment goes
Mm.
off in people's minds. And again, though, I really think it's because people just don't know. You just believe whatever's kind of floating out there in the air that has been said, but if you really dig into it and you really learn about it, you'll see a totally different side. And I have found that when I've been able to share my story with people, they would say, I just had no clue. I had
Mm.
no clue that is what bipolar disorder was. And it is literally an eye-opening experience for many to find out what it really is. I think some of those are some of the big misconceptions. And to this day, I live such a fulfilling life.
Mm.
Yes, there was many years I never thought I'd cross the line of being able to live a fulfilling life. Yes, I never thought I'd get married. Yes, I never thought I'd have children.
Mm.
Yes, I never thought I'd be able to hold down a job. Yes, I never thought I'd be able to live on my own again. But I am. And it's because of the things that I learned and that I had to do. I
Mm.
had to learn to first accept the illness.
Hmm.
Secondly, I had to learn to trust my doctors in the medical treatment that they were giving me. And I had to learn, and this is first, actually, this is more important than any of it, but I had to learn to trust that God was going to get me through every
Mm.
day. I really had to trust 100% because there's a lot of time you're fighting with this, and um, the pain and the suffering is so deep that you just do not have the energy for anything in the more
Mm.
anymore. And
Mm.
that's even including your relationship with God. It can go to the wayside. It can fall to the wayside. And that's why it's so important that our people are in your life who are going to pick you up, who are going to walk along beside of you, and who are going to lift you during this time when you can't do it yourself.
Hmm.
It's imperative that you have those people, or you try to find this community, because I know a lot of people who are living with this, they are not as fortunate as I am to have a family that has supported me through all these years. Many people have to do it on their own or have to seek out support groups, and I do that as well. I seek those support groups, but find your people. Find your people who are going to help you. When you find your people, my gosh, it makes a world of difference.
Hey, Joey Pinz here. Want to take your podcast experience to the next level? I'm excited to invite you to become a YouTube member. It's the absolute best way to support the channel and enhance your connection. Join our amazing community and unlock the incredible perks, custom loyalty badges, exclusive emojis, and priority comment replies. Your voice will always stand out. Be the first to watch new videos with early access, receive special membership shoutouts, and get exclusive behind the scenes photos and updates. Dive into content available only to our members, special videos, deep dives, and insider perspectives. Engage directly with me. Suggest podcast topics you want to hear, and even get personalized video shoutouts. Hit the join button right now and become part of something special. Let's build this amazing community together. I can't wait to welcome you as a new member. Join the Joey Pinz family today. Community, the theme of community. I heard you talk about, Jesslyn, that you would be put on medication, start doing well, and then take yourself off it, and you would go through these
Yeah.
cycles. This is where you started to, needed to develop that trust with your medical professionals and God, etc. When we have friends that are going and they're at that same stage, is there anything that we can do to help encourage that, or in your case, you had to learn it by yourself, but maybe others can actually have some assistance? Can friends help there, or loved ones help?
Oh, absolutely. And dealing with medication, it is really, really hard. Sometimes I mean, it took me nearly a decade to find the medication that was really going to
Mm.
work for me. Some of these medications for mood disorders, unfortunately, have a laundry list of side effects, and many of these medications affected me severely, and it was a process. Um, and during that process, people can get so frustrated that they don't even want to try anymore. And I get
Mm.
it.
Mm.
I didn't want to try anymore either. And for many times, I didn't because of the severe side effects that I did. But I also realized that when I tried to fight it on my own without having something that would help pull me up, um, I would always spiral down, and eventually I'd be in the pit again.
Wow.
And I want to say too, medication is never a cure. It's not some magic pill, whatever you find that's going to work for you. It's a combination of things.
Mm.
The medication does help to a certain degree, but it's a combination of things. It's not just the medication, but if your doctor is telling you that temporarily right now, hey, if he thinks or she thinks this might benefit you, then, trust their expert
Hmm.
opinion. And I know there's a fight sometimes where it's hard because you have to have that communication with your doctor or your psychiatrist and be absolutely honest with them about what's going on and what side effects you're experiencing. And sometimes during those times, I didn't even care. So I was like, put me on whatever you want me to put on.
Mm.
I didn't vocalize with them what it was really doing to me. I didn't take notes saying, hey, this is how it was going to affect me, because I was that low and I just didn't have the energy to do that, nor did I care for myself in that way. I
Mm.
didn't think I was going to make it, so I was like, whatever. And after a while, I felt like this guinea pig. They were just trying medication after
Hmm.
medication. But that was partially my fault too, because I wasn't being honest with them. And I would, due to side effects at times, take myself off of medications. The first one they tried me on was a medication called Depakote. It's a mood stabilizer, and it severely made me gain all this weight. And I was asked to be in my older brother's wedding during the time, and I had gained nearly like 30 pounds. And the bridesmaid dress that they sent me that came in, I ordered in one size. By the time it got here, I couldn't fit in it,
Oh,
and it
wow.
just wrecked me. Like, I was just like, not only am I living with this severe depression, I can no longer fit into things that I used to wear, and it just added on top of everything that I
Mm.
was going with. Oh gosh, the medication side of it is so different for everyone.
Mm.
But I encourage those who do have to take medication. Yes, I do believe that in there you can totally be over medicated. And when it gets to that point, because it got to that point for me several times where I was too over medicated. And until I was able to taper off some of those medications and get down to just using, what we found eventually that worked for me, oh my gosh, did it make a difference.
Mm.
Again, though, it was a combination of things and it was a process. And to this day, I take medication. But I do it with that. I do it with continually learning. I do it with continually seeking the help and seeking the therapy that I need and trusting those medical experts in my life. And it's important to find that psychiatrist that you trust. If you don't trust them, find a new one. You want somebody that is going to get you. You want somebody that's going to work with you. The same thing with your therapist. If you're not jiving, if you're not meshing, find a new one. It's critical. It's critical. This is your life, and you need to be fitting. You need to have that fit with whoever you're seeking help with. Um, and now that I've gotten to this point in my life, that's why this book was written. And I'm just so passionate because I've been there. I've been on the other side, and I have seen that my lived experience is actually helping other people. And when I saw that, gosh, it gave me this passion and lit this fuel inside of me that, oh my gosh, all this pain and all this suffering I went through for so many years is actually helping other people. And what a gift that is.
Mm.
It's just such a gift that now that I get to speak with these women, or women come to me and they seek this advice, if I'm able to help them in any way. And it's just such a gift. And those who are in that spot right now, and those who are in that pain and in that suffering, they have that gift inside of them too. They just
Mm.
can't see it right now. But those wounds will never be wasted. And even though it feels like it's going to take years, or you may never get there at all, eventually, if you trust in everything that you need to do, from your doctors, your psychiatrist, your therapist, your community, your higher power, if you're a spiritual person, if you believe in that, if you trust all those pieces working together, you'll see how it will unfold, and you will see how it is so possible to live a fulfilling life. And that is just what I want for people. I just want to help people now because I know what I went through, I know what my family went through, and we don't want to see that for anybody else. If we can help in any kind of way, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, it's remarkable, Jesslyn, and of course the bottom, perhaps not the bottom, but where I could see is, of course, we need to talk about suicide, right? Where
Yeah.
it's a horrible thing. It's I think it's number one or number two in a certain age group in our country. It's terrible thing, but you were there. But again, what shows a remarkable person like yourself is that you went to suicide prevention hotline, started helping others. You talk about your first incident was a tragic one where you weren't quite ready and it took you away, but you went back and you continue to help people. I think that's the trait of a remarkable person. I want to applaud you for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And unfortunately, when you are diagnosed with depression, and you live with bipolar disorder, that is a symptom. You get to that worthlessness that you just don't feel like you can do it anymore, that you see a way out. And in the beginning of this all for me, after my roommate had called my parents, I must have been home for only 2 weeks. And I did the unthinkable, and that's what I did. I attempted suicide because I just could not see out of the pit of despair. I couldn't see any way out of it. And that led me to the first hospitalization. And that led me to that first diagnosis, or diagnoses, the MDD and the OCD. And gosh, up to when I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I probably was hospitalized at least 4 or 5 different times
Mm.
along that process because of suicide ideation or thinking that I couldn't do this. I could just not do this. And I didn't see a way out. And you're absolutely right. Suicide is one of the leading causes of death, especially in the younger generation. And a suicide happens one one suicide happens every 11 minutes.
Mm.
Every 11 minutes, and it's just mind blowing. How many people are hurting and how many people are suffering, and how the struggle is so real, and how we need to open our eyes to this and just be helping people where we can. Yeah. Um, but you mentioned the helpline, and that was such a gift too. It was working with NAMI. I volunteered to serve on the national helpline, and they're always looking for volunteers too for the national helpline. So if anybody's ever interested, just check out their website, www.nami.org, and you can find it on there and get some more information. But um, I served on the helpline for 6 months. And after going through their training, and after taking my first call and the experience I had on the first call, I honestly did not know if I was going to be able to continue doing it, because it was a call that was very sensitive to me, and it dealt with, you know, not wanting to live, or it was a situation where they had a family member not wanting to live anymore. And wow, did it ever challenge me really badly, to the point, to during that call, I reached out to the helpline captain, and I'm like, I need help. I don't know how to get through this right now. But I did. I did. And that weekend, I remember that weekend very clearly. And it brought me back to a lot that I had dealt with. And it was a very emotional time. And I had it in my mind the next week that telling them that I don't know if I could continue with
Mm.
this anymore. But I did. And I kept doing it every week after week. And every week after week, I continued to get stronger and stronger. Who? Because I saw after talking to these people who called in that I was actually helping them in some way. And I just felt like honored, and I just felt it was such a gift to be able to try and do that. And it was such a blessing serving on that helpline. And I learned so much. The resources that I learned and the resources that I took away with me from that time on the helpline were priceless. I use them to this day. Um, NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness, is a wonderful organization. They have many different programs you can get involved with. I got involved with many programs before getting to where I am now. I'm still involved with NAMI. I'm affiliated with the NAMI Northwest Piedmont, which is my area, and they have affiliates all over the world, that in with every state they have an affiliate within your city or within your city lines that you can get involved with as well. So um, yeah, that was a fantastic experience, and doing that too helped me. It helped me even more to grow in my journey and
Mm,
to um, really, just give me that boost of confidence that I needed, that I can do this. I can continue to do this and try to help other people. So NAMI will always have like a special place in my heart, because they were a piece of that helped me to cross over that
mm,
line
mm.
and stay in recovery. Yeah.
Justin, you had a terrible accident where you fell down the stairs, you hurt your neck, took many surgeries, but one particular one where your husband was carrying you around, you couldn't do much things. You actually found some respite and created a framework of the Fighting Goliath book, correct?
Oh my gosh. Yes. And how that all unfolded too is just a God thing as well. Back in 2019, I had a terrible accident. I had gotten up one morning, and it was when my kids were younger, and uh, we were still doing the elf on the shelf for especially the youngest one. And I was getting up so early every day, moving that elf on the shelf. And I had gotten up that morning, and it was early. I'm thinking like probably like 4:30, 4:45, because I did not want them to get up and find that elf was still in the same place and that I was going to ruin something. So I got up, I didn't turn on any lights, and went to our staircase to go downstairs, and my foot just slipped. I had on some of those big fuzzy socks, and my foot slipped, and I fell on the back of my head, and I ended up going down every single
Mm,
staircase on
mm,
the back of my head, and there are 13 stairs that I went down. By the time I reached the bottom, I had all the wind knocked out of me. And it was literally one of those things where you're like, like you can't breathe. Everything had been knocked out of you. And I just laid there. And my husband had already gone to work. He works very early some days. And my girls were still sound asleep. And I tried to get out the words to say help, but I couldn't even speak the words help. So I just laid there, and it ended up leading to my first. I had actually an emergency cervical fusion surgery where they operated on a level of disc that I had completely ruptured. And that led me into a recovery process after that surgery that was really lengthy. And that was actually how I first learned about NAMI and their Inner Own Voice program, because I was down for so long. 6 months later, I had my second
wow.
cervical fusion neck surgery, where they go through the front, they cut through the front of your neck, and they fuse those discs. They fuse those discs in that area back together. Again, I was down, recovering from another surgery. And it was during those times that I started to write. Um, I've always loved to write. It's always been a form of therapy for me. And I was forced to be in a position where I couldn't do anything else but heal and write. And so that's exactly what I did. And then in 2023, I was doing okay for a little bit, but in 2023, I was starting to have huge issues again. And I ended up going to get another MRI, seeing the doctor again, and unfortunately, we were in the same place again where I was
Hmm.
going to have surgery. And this time around, it was horrific for me. It was really hard. And leading up to that surgery and trying to get in for that surgery was a process because it came on really fast. Um, and I got to the point where I was really like immobile. My husband was carrying me up the stairs to bed every night. He was helping me put on my shirts because I couldn't lift my arm but so high. I had to have help with washing my hair or bathing. I mean, literally I was immobile because I could no longer lift my arm above a certain way and because of my neck and the pain. Um and during that time I continued the writing, and that's when I knew that I had a story within me, and I had a story to share, and this was giving me the time where I could start it. And if it wasn't for this time looking back, I would have really never have sat down to write it and start it because the lives we live are really crazy and hectic. I have 3 girls. We have a full life, things going on all the time. I was working full time. There's no way I was going to sit down and try to write a book. God forced me to
Hmm.
sit down and write this book. And I'm telling you, it would never have been written if I hadn't have fallen down the stairs, if this accident had not happened. But
Wow.
what unfolded during that fall and during that time was the voice I was hearing where he was telling me, write, write, write. And that's
Hmm.
what I did. And so during that time, back in it was March 2024 that I heard something, saw some advertisement about the publisher that I am working with, and the publisher that I'm working with is Hope Publishing. And I was interested because of the word hope. I was interested in hearing more because their publishing company was called Hope Publishing. And that's what this book was all about. This book that I was writing were my hard, hope filled words that I knew could probably help somebody else. And that was the purpose and behind this whole book. The book's called Fighting Goliath, Slaying the Giant of Bipolar Disorder. And this book is just a godsend to me. It's all the glory to him. I would not have written this book if it wasn't for him, and for him um, weaving all these pieces of my life together into this beautiful tapestry I never thought would be. You know, I was not a writer, I was not an author. Um,
Hmm.
I didn't think I would ever be able to write a book, but that's what God does. When you trust him, he turns your impossible into the possible. And when you finally realize that, I mean, you're never going back. You're never looking back. You're only going forward. And I hope everybody can see that or find that within themselves because it's a feeling you don't want to be without. So, Fighting Goliath, thank you for mentioning that, is now here and now available for pre-order, and I'm really excited. We're just starting the launch team. It will officially come out July 22nd, and is available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and other book retailers out there. So check it out if you're interested. Thank you for saying that.
And what do you want the reader to come away with? Because you make it known you're not a medical, you're not a psychologist, you're not a medical practitioner,
Right.
but it's more of a memoir telling people what you went through, and hopefully it'll help.
Absolutely. What I want the reader to come away with, first of all, is there is always hope. To not lose hope, to keep hanging on, even when you don't feel it, keep hanging on. There's people out there, there's millions of other people who live with bipolar disorder, and there's millions of other people, whether you see it or not, that get you and want to help you.
Mm.
Again, you just have to find those people and be willing to find those people. I know not all people are going to feel comfortable about telling other people that they live with bipolar disorder. I was not comfortable for
Mm.
many, many years. It's a very personal decision that you have to uncover and reveal for yourself if that's something that you want to do. For me, and for where I am in my life, it has helped me. And it was my missing piece to get to where I am today and to be able to not only write this book, but be able to have the ministry I do today, which is helping other women who live with bipolar disorder. And it's just a beautiful thing. I mean, even though I live with this and it's a lifelong journey, I know I am never alone. And I
Mm.
know I will always be okay, even when the pit comes again, because the pit will come again. And that's the thing that people need to understand. It's a journey, and your life, whatever happens in your life stressors, your big things that come at you and pound on you every day, and the giants of your life, they're going to come. And living with an illness like this, they're going to affect the illness. And that's also when Satan wants to dig in, and Satan wants to tell you, nope, you're not going to make it this time. You're not going to make it out of this. So, maybe it's better off that you're not here anymore. Don't listen to the voice.
Mm.
Don't listen to the lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. And I'm telling you that my journey and my belief, and having to learn what I did, and um, seek the expert opinions, seek Christ, and know that, I am not alone, is what got me and carried me here. And
Mm.
I know other people can get there too. You just have to believe it, and you just have to believe in yourself, because we all have stories. We all have stories. All these people living with bipolar disorder have a story to be shared. And can you imagine that? If everybody shared their story, if they got to a place to share their story, how many people that could help? I mean, it just blows my mind. And that's why I just stand in awe. I stand in awe of what God is doing in my life right now. And it's only because of Him. So I don't even remember what your original question was. So you might have to
You answered it
ask
perfectly,
me
Jesslyn. What I
again.
want the reader to come away with. Yeah, yeah,
Oh.
and you answered it very well. Has there been anything in recent history, like in the last month or so, Jesslyn, that you changed your mind on?
That I changed my mind on? Wow. That's a really good question. I know that my mind is forever changed, and I will never look back where I've come today. Um, I will never look back. It's only forward. I know that even though I live with bipolar disorder, there's always hope, and there doesn't have to be an end when it goes dark.
Hmm.
And it's actually when it goes dark is when I learn the most. When it goes dark, I continue to learn the most. And when it goes dark is when you need to lean in the most. And when it goes dark, that is when I'm most creative. I've written a lot in the dark. I've written a lot in those early AM hours when your brain doesn't shut off and when you can't sleep and you're the only one up in the house. It's in those early morning hours that I heard his voice many times. And it was just like, by hearing his voice, I could just write and write and write.
Hmm.
And it is true. bipolar disorder and living with bipolar disorder, there's a lot of people who express their creativity living with bipolar disorder, because that is the way we get it out. We get it out through our writing, we get it out through our music, we get it out through our words. And I just would encourage you, if you do live with this, get it out. I mean,
Mm,
put it on paper, put it in music, because when you do, it turns into something that nobody can touch.
mm.
It's yours, and it's your lived experience. And that's why your lived experience is so powerful too, because it's yours. It's your story. It's your lived experience, and nobody else has your story, you know? Um, so yeah, it's just I just stand in awe. I really do. I just can't believe I'm living the life I am today. And I again just want that for other people.
Wonderful sentiment. So, just when I started my business back, want to show your love for discipline, inspiration, and the Joey Pinz podcast? Now's your chance. Introducing the brand new Joey Pinz merch store, where style meets discipline. Choose from premium apparel, cozy hoodies, stylish hats, durable bags, and your new favorite coffee mug, all featuring the iconic Joey Pinz logo. Perfect for podcast fans, discipline enthusiasts, or as unique gifts for friends and family. Every purchase supports the Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, helping us continue to inspire greatness and promote positive change. Visit joeypins.com/store today and wear your discipline proudly. Joey Pinz merch. Wear it, share it, and live it. In the 90s, I was working way too hard, 14, 16-hour days. I'm sure you're no stranger to that. And putting my health in the back seat. And next thing I know, I'm in front of the doctor, and she tells me I'm at 340 pounds. She says,
Mm,
if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. My daughter was just born. Scared the life out of me, driving home, angry with myself, and spent the next 6, 7 months, lost about 120 pounds,
mm,
kept it off. You can't look at these things as a finishing line, right? These are lifelong changes. And it's an
right.
interesting parallel with yourself as well, where you thought you could just heal yourself. And you just, in this case, I didn't tell anybody what I was doing. I didn't tell anybody what happened at the doctor. I said, I'm going to do this myself, and I'm going to stick with this. I just didn't want the accountability. But when I tell people this story, they always, what's your secret? What'd you do? What'd you do? And there's no secret, Jesslyn. Discipline. I
Yeah.
believe it's a spectrum: motivation, focus, willpower. How does discipline play a role in your life?
Discipline plays a huge role. I live with a routine. I live with that discipline. Yes. And I live with that obedience to God. Like every day I'm getting up at the same time. It's critical. And it's critical for people who live with bipolar disorder to stay on a routine. It's critical to get up, make your bed, make those first steps, because it's when you don't get up, it's when you don't make those first steps, you just give up.
Mm,
You give up at the very beginning. But if you at least get up and you start moving, and you try to make that bed, it can help you. And I know when you're in the thick of it and when you are in that depression, there are times when it is impossible. You
mm,
feel like you are dragging shackles,
mm,
living with those shackles around your ankles, and you're just trying to get, your steps are so heavy, and you're trying to just make it one step to the next, to the bathroom, and
mm,
to get your day
mm,
started. And some days are going to be impossible, and some days it might not work, and
mm,
that's okay. That is okay. But you don't have to stay there. You have to try to make these goals and these little steps day by day,
mm,
and they matter. um, Discipline is huge for me. I'm on a routine every day. I watch my diet. I make sure to get outside. I was inside for so long.
mm,
My vitamin D levels were like plummeted.
Mm.
I needed the sunlight. I needed the sunshine. I needed to see all creation going out my door. It's so hard though. It's so hard to make that step out your door when you're in depression. You don't even want to get out of bed. How am I going to
Mm.
get out the door?
Mm.
And I'm not in people who live with depression will totally get that. It's hard for people to see when you don't live with it. But literally someday if if all you can do is brush your teeth, hey, that's an accomplishment.
Mm.
It's a fight. And but when you have that discipline and you have that in your mind, hey, this is what works for me and this is what I need to do every day, and you stick to it. Hey, I mean that keeps me on schedule. That keeps me on track. It's when I start not doing that I can spiral, and I do. Discipline is huge. I completely agree,
Hmm.
100%.
What motivates you, Jesslyn?
What motivates me every day is the gift that God has given me now. With this, with my calling, with my passion, it gets me up every single day. Even on the days where, like, there's going to always be hard times in people's life and in my life. And I'm telling you, the hard time that my family and I had last year, the huge life changing moment where many people around me thought that she's not going to get out of bed.
Hmm.
She is not going to get out of bed, is when I unexpectedly lost my father. He went in for a routine hip replacement, and the surgery went well. It's what happened after after the surgery, where um, he got a blood clot, and the blood clot went straight to his heart and took him
Hmm.
instantly. And it hit me hard. It hit me very hard. Yes, it affected me every single way. I even actually resigned from my position at work because the anxiety and the stress of everything, it was just too much to bear. But I know, and that's what you know too. You know, when you live with this for so long, you know what your red flags are. That was a huge red flag. All alarms were going off after that happened, that I can't do this. I cannot do this right now. And that's what I did. I ended up resigning so I could know how to take care of myself through that process and trying to deal with the grief of my father. And I'm still trying to deal with the grief of it. He hasn't even been gone for a year. But how I deal with it is knowing what what my father had told me to. And what he had told me is that if your faith is always in Christ, if you are rooted in his word, you're always going to be okay, no matter what happens in your life. And I know that, and I know where he is. And I know that one day I will see him again. And I know that this life that we live is so short. It's
Hmm.
only this short little period of time, but where he is eternal. And I know that, and I know I will see him again. So, um, again, what was the original question?
Motivation.
Motivate. Oh my gosh. Uh, that's what keeps me motivated. My purpose and my calling that I know hands down 100% that I was gifted keeps me motivated every single day, even amongst whatever arrows that are going to be shot at me. I can still go on.
Purpose, calling, excuse me, it seems impact or motivations for you. So, given those motivations, Jesslyn, how do you measure success?
I measure success upon knowing, I say this, and knowing Jesus Christ is my Savior.
Hmm.
I would not be here without him. He was the missing piece to my story, not trusting him the way I needed to. It is only because of him that I am still standing here today. It is only because of him that he constantly puts these people in my life. He constantly gives me that hedge of protection. You know, he constantly leads me down the path that I know to go, and he closes those other doors when my time is up. when it's not healthy for me anymore, or what I need to do to best take care of myself. Even if it was a good situation, still, it wasn't where I need to be at that moment. And he, above all people, he knows that. He knows that about each of us. He knows every single hair that we have on our head. I mean, he's the creator of the universe. My success is knowing him. And my success now is telling my story. It is only because of him that I am here. And I want his name to be known. I don't need my name to be known. I just need his name to be known and what he has done in my life. And that gives me all the success that I need.
Oh, that's absolutely wonderful, Jesslyn. I'm so inspired by you, and it's one thing if somebody fights, has these issues and fights against it and gets themselves better, but it's the sign of a remarkable person that gets those efforts and gets that knowledge and tries to help others with it. And I
Mm.
applaud you for that, and I thank you for that. And we need more of you in this world. Thank you so much. Anybody watching or listening, how can we get in touch with you?
Oh gosh. Thank you. You could visit the website. It's www.jesslyn, Jesslyn McCutcheon, McCutcheon.com. And I'm on the different socials: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. You could check me out there too if you would like.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. JesslynMcCutcheon.com. Next time I'm in the greater North Carolina area, perhaps we'll get a cup of tea.
I would love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate you.
You be well.
Thank
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.